Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today's topic, Kanye West. Just kidding, it's not Kanye West. I just thought I'd trigger you and make you get all kinds of crazy because he's like, what in the hell is this guy doing talking about Kanye West? However, Kanye West does actually have a part to do in what it is that I am going to talk about today. Now, here's why. I want to share with you guys an idea that I read about a while ago, and in fact didn't really understand it until recently. And it applies to me and it applies to you, but I'm going to bring up Kanye West first, and then we're going to talk about this. So, Kanye West. If you don't know who Kanye West is, you probably live underneath a rock. So I'm not going to go explaining who he is. But I do want to talk about some of the characteristics or traits that Kanye West has. Kanye West has an extremely high opinion of himself. He was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. I don't remember how long ago that was, but he was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and his image was paired with the title "The Passion of Kanye." And basically, the picture showed that Kanye was trying to embody a crucified Christ, right? Showing blood and facial scars and wearing a crown of thorns. After one of his albums went platinum, I think it was called Watch the Throne, he began declaring himself. Like, he started telling people that he was a god. And then on his next album, he actually said in some of his lyrics, I am a god. You've seen him, some of his theatrics on stage where, I forget what awards show it was, where Taylor Swift was on stage. I think it was the VMAs. And he goes on stage and literally takes the microphone out of her hand and starts talking. Like, what is going on here? Now, a lot of us like to confuse this with something called ego. And yes, ego does play a part in it, but ego is not the whole thing. Ego is merely a piece of it, right? What Kanye West suffers from is the same thing that many of you suffer from, you and I. It's something called the God complex. In other words, we feel like we can do no wrong. How many times in your life have you experienced this? This idea, this thought in your mind that then dictates your actions that you can do no wrong. I've experienced this many times without even knowing it. When I got married, much like you, there's no manual for marriage, right? And I thought that doing things my way was the right way and that I could do no wrong. Even when I screwed up, I would blame it on who? On someone or something else. This is what I would do, which led my wife to more than, I don't even know, thousands of times roll her eyes, get pissed off, slam the door, drive away. I can go on and on and on. Because why? Because she didn't want to be around me. Because my ego had grown so big that it had now become this God complex. And there was no way for me to do any wrong. The other thing that comes with the God complex is you think that you can control everything. You can control your wife, you can control your kids, you can control your income, you can control your body, you can control. And when you can't control, what happens? Then you start to justify it with how things are turning out around you. For the longest time, this is how I functioned. Now, being a police officer, it's a very ego-driven career. That is for sure. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're a police officer or you know a police officer, deep down inside, in their heart of hearts, they want to do nothing but help other people. However, being in that environment, being given the quote unquote badge and gun, the authority to enforce the law, sometimes gets taken too far. And so I would take this ego, this God complex that I'd created at work, and I would take it home. And I would walk in the door, and the door would fling open. My cape would flap in the wind behind me. My arms would be on my hips, one leg forward, looking off into the distance, expecting hearts to come out of my wife's eyes, and my kids to come running towards me, "Daddy," hug me, and like that. That's what I expected. And instead, I would walk in the door, and my wife would be on her computer, and the kids would be playing their games, and nobody really cared about me. So I went from a place where, by default, I was given this authority, right, which fed my ego, which ultimately created this God complex that I could do no wrong. And then I would try and go home with this same God complex. I could do no wrong, and it wouldn't work. So I would do what every man tries to do, what you've tried to do, and that's force it. I would try and force the "I'm a great husband and father" onto my family. I would try and force that onto my wife, which meant what? She didn't want to have anything to do with me, right? I would try and like cuddle up in bed, and I'd be there naked and like on my elbow, kind of looking at her, giving her the look, and she would look at me and get in bed and turn the other way. And then I'd try and like cuddle up all close and rub her shoulders and kiss her neck, and she'd basically tell me no. I know you've experienced this. And instead of taking the time to understand what was going on and find a solution to the problem, what would I do? Well, then I would go somewhere else to where what? I could use this inflated God complex and feel like I was, which meant for me at that point, working more. How many of you spend time working more because in that particular environment, there's people who love, honor, and respect you. There's people who may even worship you. There's people who think that the ground you walk on is hallowed. And so you spend more time in that environment. And here's the crazy part. If you don't spend enough time in your personal life, i.e. coming back down to earth, and you spend more time here, then you're going to start to, what? Not like one particular environment, your personal life. And you're going to start to associate yourself with people who, what? Who start to worship the ground you walk on. Now, a lot of you have experienced this. And it's this idea, again, that you can do no wrong, right? And so this God complex carries over into the decisions that you make. And the decisions that you make ultimately influence the outcome, i.e. the results that you get in your life. So many of you around 10 to 12 to 15 years of marriage are completely unhappy and dissatisfied. You've got a roommate with a ring, basically. Your kids would rather interact with somebody on Snapchat or TikTok or any of these other apps than they would with you. And so you've got this old Western standoff, right? It's you and your God complex versus your family. And no one's budging. So how is it that you ultimately get what it is that you want? That's the question, right? If life is about getting what you want, then it's about figuring out how to do that. But what is in the way of you getting what you want? Let's talk about that for a minute. Every man has these two basic needs, right? They want to get paid and they want to get laid. You can argue with me all day long, but don't tell me those are the two things that you think about every single day. If you're not getting laid, you want to get laid. If you're not getting paid, you want to get paid. Period. If a man has these two things, he is completely satisfied. If he's not, he's miserable. And he will go try and find it somewhere else. So the God complex creates this standoff where you can either lower your guard, lower your ego, figure out what's not working, and start to work on it to get what you want within your family, or you're going to go outside of it. you're going to find those people, those situations, those things that have you feeling godlike, right? Which will lead you down the path of finding these other women who what? Who worship the ground you walk on, not because of who you are, but because of the position that you hold, not understanding anything about the situation. And so in your God complex mentality, you start to think that proverbial grass is greener on the other side. It's not that your wife doesn't love you. She just doesn't love your godlike complex. She doesn't love your ego. So how is it that we get rid of it? How is it that we shift over to that? See, as a man, is it bad to want to be loved and appreciated? Well, no. We all want to be loved and appreciated. Is it bad to want to help other people? Well, no. We actually all want to help other people. So how is it that we remove this God complex and shift over to get what it is that we ultimately want? Well, two things have to happen. Number one, you have to admit that you can't control everything. You can't control everything. There are days that your wife is not going to want to have sex with you, especially when Aunt Flo is visiting. There are days that your kids are not going to want to hang out with you, and you can't control that. But you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the fact that you can't control everything in your life. But number two, you have to take control of the situations in your life. Now, I know I'm talking a lot about personal life right now, but it's the same thing in your business, right? If your ego is so big, if your God complex is so big that you think that your next product will not fail, odds are your next product will fail. Odds are, if you're a salesman, you're not going to reach your quota. Why? Because you're not willing to look at the facts of why the things aren't working. So if you're a salesman, what are you doing every single day to improve your sales? If you're a salesman, what are you doing to track your sales? If you're a salesman, what are you doing to improve your closing ratio? We could do this for salesmen. We can do this for CEOs. We can do this for entrepreneurs, for online businesses. It doesn't matter. We could do this for your relationship. We can do this for your body. We can do this for all these different areas. Regardless, the fact of the matter is, if you think you control everything and you're not willing to make the changes necessary to get what you want, your life will continue to fall apart. Or it will stay exactly where it is. The old standoff. You on one side, your family on the other, staring at each other, waiting for someone else to blink. And ultimately delaying what it is that you ultimately want, which is that connection, which is that intimacy, which is feeling loved and appreciated. So sure, you can take your God complex and you can go find people and situations who give you that false sense of praise, of love, honor, and appreciation. Absolutely. But none of that will last. None of that will last. Because regardless of what you do for work, whether it be a police officer, whether it be a CEO, whether it be an executive, whether it be a salesman, regardless of what you do for work, when you go home, nobody cares. Nobody cares. What they care about is you. You, the individual. You, the loving husband. You, the loving father. And what are you doing to make sure that that is a reality? Your God complex will not do that for you. So the challenge is, can you let go of it? Can you let go of it? And I challenge you to do that. I challenge you to let go of that. To let go of the idea that you can control everything and start to look for the things that you can do, especially in your personal life, whether it be with your body, whether it be with your relationship, hell, even in your business. What can you do to let go of that God complex and understand that you can't control everything and what you need to do in order to shift to get the results that you want in your life? All right, that's all I got for you. If you're ready to explore what this looks like, if you're a married businessman who's struggling in his relationship, then I got something for you. Go to thetacticalbusinessman.com. I got some free training there for you. It'll help you get clear on some things. Where it is that you are, where it is that you want to go, and ultimately what's in the way of you getting there. All right. As always, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next.